Men, let's be honest. No matter how long you've been around women, they still somehow manage to confuse you. 1 minute, everything's calm and sweet, and the next, you're wondering what just went wrong. Today, we're going deep into a topic most men talk about privately, but rarely understand fully. The top 7 female weaknesses every man must know. And before you jump to conclusions, this isn't about judging women. It's about understanding them on a level most men never reach. Welcome back to the channel, where we don't just talk about relationships. We break them down, we analyze them, and we learn how to lead with intelligence, not emotion. If you've ever found yourself asking why women act a certain way, why they seem unpredictable, or why they test your patience, then this video will open your eyes. You see, women aren't mysterious by accident. They operate on a different emotional frequency, one that most men never learn to tune into. These so-called weaknesses we're about to explore aren't flaws. They're emotional patterns. When you understand them, you stop guessing and start leading with clarity. When you ignore them, that's when confusion, arguments, and disconnection creep in. Throughout this video, we'll unpack the 7 key emotional triggers that shape how women think, love, and respond to men. You'll learn what to do, what not to do, and how to handle these dynamics with strength, confidence, and calm authority. Because once you understand how women operate emotionally, you'll stop reacting and start responding like a man who knows exactly what he's doing. So sit back, hit that like button, and stay with me until the end. Because after this, you'll never look at female behavior the same way again. But before we start, listen carefully. What you see here in my channel is just a preview, not the full picture. If you really want to master the dating game and learn how modern relationships actually work, don't waste time. Rush right now to https://stoicapproachtolife.com/a/gvvls, or go to my description and click the link below and unlock the real strategies, the real teachings, the real results. Don't just watch, level up today. So let's get started. 1. Emotional sensitivity. When it comes to understanding women, emotional sensitivity sits at the core of almost everything. It's one of the most misunderstood aspects of the female nature, yet it's also one of the most powerful. Many men mistake it for weakness, when in truth, it's a source of intuition, empathy, and emotional depth. Women feel deeply. That's not an exaggeration, it's a fact. Their emotions often guide their decisions, their reactions, and even their connections with others. What might seem small or meaningless to a man can hold immense emotional value to a woman because she doesn't just hear words, she feels them. This is where many men get it wrong. They assume that logic alone should lead every conversation or solve every disagreement. But a woman's world operates on emotional logic, a system where feelings define reality. When she's upset, she's not always looking for you to fix the problem. She's looking for you to understand her feelings about it. That's a critical difference. A man who learns to listen without dismissing, to comfort without controlling, becomes someone she trusts deeply. Emotional sensitivity, when handled correctly, becomes the bridge between a woman's heart and a man's leadership. However, when a man ignores or belittles her emotions, it creates emotional distance. She begins to feel unseen and undervalued, and that's when respect fades. What men often interpret as drama is sometimes a cry for emotional acknowledgement. Understanding this doesn't mean you have to lose your masculine composure. It simply means you must lead with emotional intelligence, respond to her emotions with calm strength, not irritation or silence. When a man learns to recognize a woman's emotional sensitivity, he gains influence without dominance. He becomes a safe place rather than a source of stress. That's where true connection begins, not through control, but through understanding. Emotional sensitivity, in its purest form, isn't her flaw, it's her language. And if you can learn to speak it fluently, you'll never have to guess what she needs. You'll already know. 2. Need for attention. One of the most important aspects of understanding women lies in recognizing their deep need for attention, not in a shallow or self-centered way, but as a reflection of how they connect, communicate, and feel valued. For many women, attention is not about vanity, it's about emotional validation. It's how they interpret love. When a man pays attention to her words, her mood, and even the smallest details about her, she feels seen, respected, and secure. But when attention fades, she begins to feel invisible, and that can slowly erode the emotional connection. This need for attention is rooted in human psychology. Women are generally more emotionally expressive and relationally driven than men. From early stages of life, they're wired to build connections through communication and emotional exchange. So, when a man becomes distant or distracted, whether by work, stress, or simply complacency, she doesn't just see it as a shift in priorities, she feels it as emotional abandonment. That's why small gestures like eye contact during a conversation, checking in during a busy day, or acknowledging her efforts can mean more than any grand gift or promise. Many men fail to understand that attention is not about constant praise or flattery, it's about presence. You can be in the same room with a woman and still make her feel alone if your mind is elsewhere. Emotional attention means being fully present, not necessarily talking all the time, but showing through your energy and focus that she matters. A man who learns this skill naturally stands out, because emotional presence is rare in a world full of distractions. Neglecting a woman's need for attention often leads to unnecessary conflicts. When she complains about something minor, it's often not the issue itself. It's the lack of emotional engagement she feels. Instead of reacting defensively, a wise man listens and asks himself, is she really upset about what she's saying, or is she craving acknowledgement? Most times it's the latter. Educated understanding of this concept helps a man navigate relationships with maturity. Attention is not weakness, it's leadership. It shows you have the capacity to understand her world without losing yourself in it. When a man masters the art of giving balanced attention, neither suffocating nor neglecting, he builds trust. She begins to relax around him, open up, and respect his emotional intelligence. So, men must realize that attention isn't a gift, it's a responsibility. It's the foundation of emotional connection. The more you understand her need for it, the more stable and fulfilling your relationship becomes. A woman who feels seen will always remain loyal to the man who made her feel that way. Attention, therefore, is not just something she wants, it's something she thrives on. 3. Fear of rejection. Among the deepest emotional struggles many women experience is the fear of rejection. It is a silent insecurity that often shapes how they love, communicate, and even how they test a man's commitment. This fear is not just about being turned down romantically. It's about being emotionally unseen, unheard, or replaced. Women often connect their sense of worth to how they are received, appreciated, and accepted, especially by the men they care about. Understanding this fear is essential for any man who wants to build a lasting and emotionally healthy relationship. At its core, the fear of rejection is tied to vulnerability. Women are naturally more open with their emotions. They invest deeply when they care, and that investment comes with risk. The moment a woman opens up her heart, she also opens herself to the possibility of being hurt. For many, rejection doesn't just wound their feelings, it shakes their sense of identity. When a man dismisses her emotions, ignores her efforts, or withdraws affection without explanation, she doesn't just feel rejected by his actions. She feels rejected as a person. Educated men understand that this fear often reveals itself in subtle ways. Sometimes she may become defensive or distant, not because she doesn't care, but because she's afraid of being rejected first. At other times, she may overcommunicate, constantly seeking reassurance, trying to confirm that she's still loved and wanted. What some men label as neediness is often an unspoken plea for emotional safety. Recognizing this difference requires emotional maturity and patience. To handle this correctly, a man must learn the power of consistency. Words alone cannot erase a woman's fear of rejection. Actions must follow. Being dependable, communicating clearly, and keeping promises build the trust she needs to feel secure. It's not about being perfect, it's about being steady. When a woman feels that her emotions are safe with a man, she naturally lets go of fear and replaces it with loyalty and openness. The wrong approach is to respond to her fears with irritation or dismissal. Many men make the mistake of telling a woman to stop overthinking or relax, not realizing that these words amplify her fear rather than calm it. The right approach is reassurance through action. Listening, maintaining respect even during disagreements, and validating her place in your life through consistent behavior. A woman's fear of rejection isn't a weakness. It's a reflection of how much value she places on emotional connection. The more a man learns to understand this, the easier it becomes for him to communicate love in a language she understands, through patience, empathy, and reliability. When a man leads with emotional steadiness, he not only eases her fears, but also earns a level of trust that can't be forced or faked. True strength lies in making the people around you feel safe, and for a woman, safety begins when she no longer fears rejection. 4. Desire for security. Every woman, no matter how independent or confident she appears, carries within her a natural desire for security. This need goes far beyond material wealth. It's emotional, psychological, and relational. Security is the foundation upon which trust and love are built. For women, it represents stability, consistency, and reassurance that the person they care about will not suddenly disappear when things get difficult. Understanding this is one of the most important lessons a man can learn about women. The desire for security is deeply rooted in biology and psychology. Throughout history, women have been wired to seek stability in their environment and relationships. This instinct is not about dependence, it's about preservation. A woman needs to know that the man she's with has direction, purpose, and strength. When she senses that he is grounded and capable of handling life's challenges, she feels emotionally safe. But when a man appears lost, inconsistent, or unpredictable, she begins to question whether she can truly depend on him. This is why a woman often pays attention to a man's discipline, his goals, and how he handles responsibility. These traits signal reliability, which directly feeds her sense of security. When a man keeps his word, manages his emotions, and faces problems calmly, he becomes a pillar of safety. She might not always express this verbally, but her emotional response will show it. She relaxes, becomes softer, more affectionate, and more trusting. However, when a woman doesn't feel secure, her behavior changes. She may become anxious, controlling, or suspicious. Not because she wants to, but because uncertainty triggers emotional discomfort. Men often mistake this as unnecessary drama, but it's really a reflection of insecurity caused by inconsistency. The solution is not to argue or withdraw, but to restore stability through clear communication and dependable behavior. Educated men understand that providing security isn't about dominance or financial superiority. It's about emotional reliability. A woman who feels emotionally safe doesn't crave control. She craves peace. When a man demonstrates that he can be trusted with her emotions, her vulnerability, and her future. She feels more empowered, not restricted. That's the real meaning of leadership in a relationship, not controlling her life, but creating an environment where she feels safe to express herself freely. Security also extends to communication. When a man is transparent, honest, and consistent in his words, he builds credibility. Lies, secrets, or emotional distance destroy security faster than anything else. But when he is honest, even about his flaws, he earns her respect. Security is not built on perfection, it's built on trustworthiness. A wise man knows that when a woman feels secure, she gives her best self. She becomes nurturing, loyal, and deeply supportive. But when she feels uncertain, even love struggles to survive. Therefore, the most powerful thing a man can do is become her peace, not her problem. Security is not bought. It's built, and it starts with integrity, stability, and emotional strength. 5. Emotional overthinking. If there's one trait that confuses men the most, it's a woman's tendency to overthink. To many men, it seems irrational or unnecessary, but in reality, emotional overthinking is a reflection of a woman's deep emotional processing. She doesn't just react, she analyzes, replays, and tries to connect meaning to everything said or done. A single sentence, a small change in tone, or a missed call can lead her mind down 100 different paths. But understanding why this happens and how to respond to it can turn frustration into connection. Women often overthink because they are emotionally intuitive. They pick up on energy, tone, and subtle shifts that men often overlook. When a man withdraws emotionally, even slightly, she senses it immediately. Her mind begins to ask, "Did I do something wrong? Is he losing interest? Is something changing between us?" This isn't paranoia. It's her natural instinct trying to protect her from emotional pain. Her thoughts become a defense mechanism, a way of seeking reassurance in uncertain emotional territory. Men, however, usually think in straight lines. They focus on facts, not feelings. So when she begins to express her worries or revisit conversations repeatedly, he may see it as unnecessary drama. But here's the truth. When a woman overthinks, she's not looking for logical explanations. She's looking for emotional clarity. She wants to feel heard, understood, and reassured. If a man responds with irritation or silence, it confirms her fears. But if he listens calmly, acknowledges her emotions, and communicates clearly, her mind quiets down. What makes this dynamic so interesting is how differently men and women process conflict. A man might need space to think, while a woman needs dialogue to heal. When he shuts down, her mind fills the silence with worst-case scenarios. The key here isn't to change how she feels. It's to guide how she interprets. When a man reassures her with consistency, she learns to trust his calmness instead of fearing it. Overthinking can also come from past experiences. If a woman has faced betrayal, emotional neglect, or inconsistency, her mind becomes conditioned to anticipate disappointment. She starts reading into every detail, not because she wants to, but because she's trying to protect her emotions. That's why patience and emotional reassurance are so powerful. A man who shows her through actions that he's reliable rewires her emotional pattern. Over time, her overthinking fades, replaced by comfort and confidence in the relationship. Instead of criticizing her for overanalyzing, a wise man sees it as a sign of care. She overthinks because she values the relationship enough to worry. It's a compliment disguised as chaos. And the moment she realizes her thoughts are safe with him, that he won't mock or dismiss them, she becomes calmer, more trusting, and more connected. So emotional overthinking isn't the problem. Misunderstanding it is. When a man handles it with empathy and consistency, he doesn't just ease her mind, he wins her heart. 6. Validation. Craving. Validation is one of the most misunderstood emotional needs women have, yet it's one of the most powerful tools a man can use to build trust and affection. Every woman, no matter how confident or accomplished she may seem, wants to feel seen, appreciated and valued, especially by the man she cares about. This craving for validation isn't vanity. It's emotional fuel. It's what reminds her that her efforts, emotions and presence matter. Understanding this doesn't make a man weak. It makes him emotionally intelligent. Women naturally seek affirmation because emotions play a larger role in how they interpret their place in a relationship. Compliments, acknowledgement, and emotional reassurance are not just niceties. They are the language of connection. When a man validates a woman, by noticing her efforts, complimenting her mind or appearance, or appreciating what she brings to his life, he feeds her sense of worth and strengthens her trust in him. But when he becomes silent, dismissive, or emotionally unavailable, she begins to feel neglected. The absence of validation slowly becomes a void that breeds insecurity. What's engaging about this topic is how subtle the signs can be. A woman who craves validation might not always say it directly. Instead, she may start asking questions like, "Do you still love me?" Or, "Do I look okay?" Or she might try to gain your attention in small, indirect ways, changing her hair, dressing differently, or becoming unusually quiet. These are not random acts. They're emotional signals. She's saying, "Remind me that I still matter to you." When a man understands this, he can respond with empathy instead of frustration. However, there's a balance. Too much validation can create dependency, while too little can create distance. The goal isn't to shower her with praise every hour. It's to make her feel emotionally secure without her having to constantly ask for it. This is achieved through genuine, consistent appreciation. When a man notices and verbalizes what he values about her, her intelligence, her efforts, her presence, she feels grounded in the relationship. She no longer needs to seek approval elsewhere because she already feels emotionally fulfilled where she stands. Men often underestimate how far small gestures of validation can go. A simple, "I appreciate you," or "You make things easier when you're around," can completely shift her mood. These moments of acknowledgement tell her that her presence has purpose. When a woman feels emotionally validated, she gives her best self, her loyalty, affection, and peace. But when she feels unseen, she slowly withdraws, not out of pride, but out of emotional exhaustion. So the next time you think she's overreacting or seeking too much attention, pause and ask yourself if she's simply craving reassurance. A man who understands this transforms communication into connection. Validation isn't manipulation, it's emotional maintenance. It keeps love alive, communication clear, and respect mutual. Because in the end, every woman wants to feel chosen, valued, and appreciated, and every wise man knows that making her feel seen is the key to keeping her close. 7. Struggle with accountability. Now, this is where things get real and often uncomfortable for both men and women. The struggle with accountability is one of the most challenging and misunderstood female weaknesses, and it's a topic many people avoid because it hits close to home. Accountability means taking responsibility for one's actions, words, and emotions. But many women, just like many men, sometimes find it difficult to admit when they're wrong. For women, this struggle is often emotional rather than intentional. It's not that they want to avoid responsibility. It's that their emotional investment in being right can sometimes cloud logical reflection. Women tend to see things through the lens of emotion first and reason second. When an argument arises, a man might try to focus on the facts, but a woman's mind immediately goes to how the situation made her feel. If her feelings were hurt, she might interpret that as evidence that she's the one who was wronged, even if she played a part in the problem. This is why, in moments of conflict, it can feel like she's shifting blame or avoiding ownership. In reality, she's reacting emotionally before she's ready to process logically. Understanding this difference helps a man navigate disagreements with maturity instead of frustration. What makes this dynamic engaging is how a man's response can completely change the outcome. If he argues back, trying to prove her wrong, it often escalates the tension. But if he stays calm, listens, and gently reintroduces perspective once the emotions have cooled, she's far more likely to reflect and take responsibility. Accountability, for a woman, thrives in an environment of emotional safety. When she feels attacked, she defends herself. When she feels understood, she rethinks her actions. Another layer to this is pride. Like anyone else, women have moments when pride gets in the way of apology or reflection. However, their pride often stems from emotional vulnerability. They don't want to feel small, disrespected, or unheard. A wise man knows how to separate accountability from ego battles. Instead of demanding an apology, he models accountability himself. When he admits his mistakes first, it disarms her defensiveness and encourages her to do the same. It's also important to note that holding a woman accountable doesn't mean scolding or correcting her like a parent. It means setting emotional boundaries. It's about being firm yet respectful, letting her know that while her feelings matter, so do fairness and truth. This balance earns respect. Over time, she begins to mirror that behavior, becoming more self-aware and emotionally disciplined. When a man learns to lead with calm authority and empathy, accountability becomes teamwork instead of a battlefield. She learns that admitting fault doesn't make her weak. It makes her mature. And when both partners can own their mistakes, the relationship grows stronger, healthier, and more transparent. So yes, the struggle with accountability is real, but it's not permanent. With understanding and patience, a man can help turn defensiveness into growth and conflict into connection. Understanding the deeper layers of female emotion isn't about control. It's about awareness. Every man who learns these 7 truths gains not only insight into women, but also mastery over his own emotional intelligence. The goal isn't to criticize or exploit weaknesses, but to recognize them as entry points to empathy, communication, and stronger connection. When a man leads with understanding, he creates harmony instead of conflict, peace instead of distance. Relationships thrive when both sides are seen, valued, and understood. So, take this knowledge not as a weapon, but as wisdom, and use it to build love that lasts. And before you go, remember, what you've just watched is only a small piece of the puzzle. If you're serious about mastering the dating game and building real confidence in modern relationships, don't wait. Visit https://www.stoicapproachtolife.com AAGVVLS right now and get access to the full teaching. That's where the real transformation